First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. After the reading, Finn will be selling some books at the back of the theater. And I'm sure he'd be happy to sign books for you too. It's a pleasure and an honor to introduce Finn Wilcox today. I met Finn about 35 years ago on the slopes of the Cascade Mountains in southwest Washington, and immediately we found that a certain humor and craziness in our humor made us country kind of bumpkins, perhaps. Also, we had a routine that was sort of Dumb and Dumber. That
Still do.
The Dumb and Dumber routine was something that our more circumspect tree planters felt annoyed by. But anyway, I think you all know what a good heart, generous heart, and wild humor Finn has. In those tree planting days, Finn went on to plant something that's still rather awesome in numbers. He planted over 1 million trees. Those are Douglas fir seedlings mostly, maybe a few cedars thrown in. But it's an incredible amount of planting. About the same time, during that period in the 80s, he and his wife Pat took over the management of Empty Bull Press, a small countercultural press that produced a number of luminaries by publishing their first works. Some of those, the names would be quite familiar to you, such as Tom J., Red Pine, Tim McNulty, Michael Daly, Sharon Dubiago, etc.
Michael Connor.
Chuck Easton. Yeah. Jim Heinen. No, I could go on. It's a long list of publications, and they did this for very, very little remuneration, if any. And but it's a continuing press now, and I'll get to what the press is doing today in a moment. In 1984, Finn published his first work called Here Among the Sacrificed, and this was a book of verse and prose and black and white photographs by the master of black and white pictures, Stephen Johnson. Together they rode the rails, the Western rails, and had an educational and compassionate series of adventures, meeting hobos and binzel stiffs as they traveled on the trains. And out of it came this incredible book called Here Among the Sacrificed, which unfortunately is out of print right now, but I have a suspicion it will be back in print in the near future. In 1991, Finn, with the intrepid Bill Porter, took off for an adventure in China to seek out the remnants of the hermit sage tradition there, encounters with hermits. And out of that, those travels in China, Finn produced another rather incredible type work called Nine Flower Mountain. This was published by Jerry Redden's Tangram Press in Berkeley in a very fine print, limited edition. It took Finn a good while to write this book and to complete it, and I've always thought it was sort of, well, I've always had this feeling that he was sort of our Salinger in many respects. Then again, recently, Finn has brought out another book, again by Tangram in Berkeley, and it's called Lesson Learned. It's love poems, and I should read this book myself, having not learned that lesson. But the book was it disappeared. The limited edition disappeared very quickly, and so Empty Bull has reprinted it in an offset edition. And that's available back at the back of the theater there. And finally, I want to mention Finn's and Jerry Gorsland's work on a seminal work called Working the Woods, Working the Sea. This was a kind of collection, well, it's an anthology of Northwest writings, but it's particularly representative of a distinctive literature that came out of the so-called Back to the Land movement, and it's germane to the Olympic Peninsula and other parts of Oregon and Northern California. And Jerry and Finn produced an edition of this in I think it's 88. And then just 2 or 3 years ago, an expanded edition was produced at great expense and energy and time by Jerry and Finn again. And I really recommend this book for local history of that period. The last thing I want to say is that the Poets House Trust in La Conner has selected to be the honored Robert Son Memorial Reader at the Skagit River Festival this year, Mr. Finn Wilcox. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to one of our dearest poets, Finn Wilcox.